There I am.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, everybody. We are about to kick off the Flipping Teardowns webinar. For those of you guys that are on here, I want to thank you for joining me, taking some time out of your day. I got a really cool webinar here to go over, and a really, really cool topic, one that is my favorite topic right now in terms of real estate investing. So thanks for joining me. There was a question ahead of time that Dan got, who's doing all the back-end production of this webinar, that was basically how this training is going to be provided, and it is an audio file as well as a PDF book. So we took the book, we recorded it, the audio version, because if you're anything like me, I don't read that well, or I read well, but I just don't like to read that much. So I'd rather listen to it in my earbuds. So that's what we did. So that's how it's going to be available. All right, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to start by doing kind of a little bit of a screen share here. So I'm going to pop up my screen, and let's see if I can. Okay, so you guys should be able to see my screen at this point. And basically this is a Flipping Teardowns, kind of our quick guide. It's going to have just a little quick syllabus here that I'll kind of scroll through what we're going to talk about. Dan actually is putting in a handout as well that you guys can pull up at any time you want. And that handout is basically, it's provided in the back end of our actual Flipping Teardowns product. But it's essentially some success stories of people from our Deal Finders Academy that have utilized the information that I'm going to talk about here today to make a ton of money for themselves. And so they're real life case studies that have happened here, you know, like this past few months, this past year. So they're legit real case studies by real people. You'll probably recognize at least one of them. He's a pretty well-known guy in the real estate investing circuit. So all right, so what are we going to do here? Let me scroll through here. So first, welcome to the Flipping Teardowns webinar. Here's what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to start off with who am I? And obviously, you know, most of you guys know who I am, but I'll just kind of go through that pretty quickly. And then we're going to get into what the biggest opportunity is for real estate investors in 2016. Obviously, I feel like that is Flipping Teardown related, but we'll dive into, you know, what that all is. And then we're going to get into what my exact strategy is for finding and flipping, or if your business is at the point where you can find and keep these teardown properties, you know, basically what the strategy is for doing both. Finding and flipping, of course, you're just going to be wholesaling these to a builder, and we'll go into that in a lot more detail. Finding and keeping is if your business is at that point where you are ready to build your own homes. You can keep them for yourself, and either way you can make a ton of money. Obviously, if you keep them, that margin gets even bigger, but finding and flipping them is incredibly lucrative as well. So you can do it either way, whether your business is ready to actually build for yourself or not. And that's the great part about this this program. And then at the end, of course, we'll have information on how you can access the Flipping Teardowns training, along with a bonus for those of you guys that you know, registered for the webinar and joined us here today. I've got a special surprise for you, just to thank you for your time. So, real quick, who am I? I'm the host of Real Dealz Podcast. My name is Tucker Merrihew. I'm sure a lot of you guys know that. I'm also the co-host of the Portland Real Estate Podcast, and that is a local podcast here in Portland. It's all about Portland real estate. I'm also the creators of the Deal Finders Academy, which is attached to our Real Dealz Podcast, and a lot of the people that utilize this information that I'm going to talk about here today are in that academy, and this is kind of our training that's going to provide that information to everybody that's not necessarily in our academy. I'm also the sole owner of TTM Development Company, and we're based out of Portland, Oregon. And TTM is pretty much a household name these days in the Portland area, both for buyers, sellers, you know, just anything real estate related. And we've created this company, or I've created it from nothing. So we've really, really built the company to a very recognized name, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do. But a lot of that success is attributed to this niche of finding and you know, flipping teardowns, or finding them, tearing them down, and building them ourselves. So Like I said, over the next 60 minutes, I'm going to take you guys through, or thereabouts. I'll try and get through it as quick as I can, but I'm going to take you guys through my exact strategy for finding and flipping these types of properties, and talk about some really cool tips and little tricks and things that I utilize when trying to, dive into this niche. Now, and again, if you stick with me to the end, I'll give you our cool little bonus. It's really, really good thank you, so you guys will be happy to, make sure that you're a part of that. So before we get into it, if you guys can, and I'm scrolling through, if you guys want to just kind of shut out your email, maybe Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. I know it's hard to do, but just bear with me the best you can, and I'm certain that you will be happy that you did. The content that we're going to go over the course of the next little bit of time here will most definitely, at a minimum, change the way that you view real estate investing moving forward. And if you choose to utilize the information that I'm telling you, it can very well change your financial well-being by a ton as well. So something to keep in mind. All right, so real quick, let's go into my story and how I kind of became working in this niche of flipping teardowns. I've been a real estate investor full-time for going on about 10 years now. We started out buying REOs. We went down to the auctions. We bought off RMLS. Then we deviated into going direct to seller about 4 or 5 years ago, 5 years ago now, and we really mastered the direct to seller game. We've done light rehabs, we've done big rehabs, we've done add-on rehabs, we've done all kinds of things, and gradually we moved into the new construction world, or the niche of new construction. Currently, my company, TTM Development Company, we've been voted best on Houzz 5 times, which, if any of you guys are familiar with Houzz, it's a great resource to go to for design ideas if you're actually doing rehabs or building your own homes. We built in the 2013 Street of Dreams here in Portland. We built a multi-million-dollar home, and now currently we've got a handful, 5, 6, 7 projects that are all multi-million-dollar homes, and we have one spec house that we're building right now that'll probably be about $4 million. And in the Portland area, those are high dollar homes. If you're in Los Angeles or somewhere like that, maybe that's not so impressive. But here in Portland, we have the business to be able to build what's considered very high-end homes here, and we've been very successful with selling them very quickly. But the driver behind this whole business that we have is our marketing machine that finds these teardown properties. Fortunately, we then have the construction side of the business built out, so we can keep a lot of them. But if we didn't, we could still make an absolute killing just flipping these to other builders. So, over the course of that 10 years, I've been in the real estate trenches just like you guys every single day, trying to find a better and more profitable way to do this business. And, over the course of time doing rehabs, doing big rehabs, doing paint and carpet rehabs, gradually getting into add-on rehabs, you always try and find, okay, what's the least amount of effort that I can put in for the most reward? Because nobody likes doing a giant rehab and then making $20,000 or $15,000 at the end of the day. It can be a real grind. And so we have over time kind of found our way to that niche which pays you the best for the time and effort that you're going to put into it. And that is flipping teardowns. For us, we found is the absolute most bang for the buck. Now, just to kind of give you a little bit more background on myself, I'm 36 years old. I currently live in a home that we bought the property. We tore down the house that was there. I built our house that I live in right now with my wife and daughter. It's a multi-million-dollar home. It's owned free and clear. I don't have any consumer debt. I don't have any personal debt. And I don't say these things to brag at all, because I'm just a normal dude like most of you guys listening on the line. I really am. I just found a niche that enabled me to make a lot of money and have a lot of financial success within the real estate business. And it's a niche that is underutilized, in my opinion, and really it's not recognized by many at all. And so for those of us that are able to recognize it and then able to take advantage of it, that kind of success is very possible for you. So something to keep in mind. Now, I would say that the biggest factor, and this is, obviously the biggest factor in my success overall, has been this flipping teardowns as well. Now, we've made a ton of money over the course of, the last few years doing other things. Just recently, a couple weeks ago, we flipped a normal rehab type wholesale for $42,000, which is a great deal. But to be honest, you have to do some pretty big deals in order to live in a multi-million-dollar home that's paid for, to have, all your cars paid for, not have any consumer debt, have and then have a good amount of money in the bank at any given time on top of that. You can do your normal flips and your normal grind rehabs where you're making $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, but to really get to that next level of well-being and financial freedom, you need that niche that can provide even bigger checks. So obviously, if you're building houses for yourself, utilizing this niche, you can make, ginormous spreads. But even without building houses for yourself, you still have the ability to make huge checks just simply by finding these deals and flipping them over to builders. So, we've had a number of people that within our Deal Finders Academy that have put this stuff to work, or these tactics and this information, and they've made really insane amounts of money. And if you guys refer to the handout at some point that Dan posted on there, you'll see what some of these dollar figures are. But the reality is that if you get good at finding these types of deals and just flipping them over to builders, you can easily make $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, even more than that on one single deal. And so, that might sound like a pipe dream, and it might sound like a douchey kind of real estate guru pitch, but the reality is that it's very true. And I'm not talking about ridiculously high price points either. I'm talking about, maybe you buy for $250 and you sell it to a builder for $350, which, some of you guys, that might sound like a lot in your market, but for the amount of spread that you can create, let's say $100,000 spread, that's not a very high price point, especially if you're not doing any work and you're just flipping it over to somebody. So basically, I know this sounds like it might be a little bit woohoo and kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, but I'm going to prove to you guys that it can be done not only by myself, but by a number of other people within our Deal Finders Academy that have used this information as well. So let's dive in here. So over the course of time that we've been teaching this in our Deal Finders Academy, and this is just to really kind of substantiate how powerful it is, I've seen a lot of people go from hardly having any traction at all. They're trying to get traction in their business, they're struggling, and then they commit to this niche, because sometimes it's like a shiny ball syndrome. It's like, what do I focus on? There's so many properties to go after. I don't really know what my niche is. And I've talked to some people in our DFA, our Deal Finders Academy, and I said, look, you need to focus on this one niche. And by doing that, it really narrowed down their focus, but it allowed them to get traction in one place, and a place that really has a huge payoff. And so it's allowed people that were getting no traction before to do $100,000 in a single month, which, as you can imagine, changes their business dramatically. We've had people that were able to finally start a family because they feel like their business is stable enough to be able to move forward with having a family and taking on those additional financial responsibilities and just responsibilities in general. We've had people that have been able to quit their job. One individual in particular that's in the handout, he just quit his job because he's been able to utilize this niche to not only source property for himself to build a house for himself, but generate huge spreads, finding other teardowns that he could flip to other builders. So the power of utilizing this niche is huge, not only in what it can do for your bank account, but just in other aspects of your life as well. Because at the end of the day, we need to have confidence in our business and our deal flow and really our financial well-being. And it starts with deal flow, it starts with your business, and it ends with the financial well-being. But you have to have that confidence. And so once you learn how to do this, one time, you can rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And it's one of those niches that not everybody understands. And so although there is competition, there's not near as much, because you're fishing in a little bit different pond than everybody else. And so that's really important to remember. Now, before we wrap up, again, I'm going to go through some of these actual case studies in a little more detail, just to make it a little more real for you guys. But let's fast forward a little bit here, and let's start talking about actually flipping teardowns and some of the content here that will get you guys excited. So here we go. Now, within our product itself, I'll show you guys right here. I've got it printed out. It's the black and white version, but let me hold it up here so I can make sure you see me. You guys can print it out if you want it. There's a PDF copy. It's thick. There's a lot to it. Maybe you can see it there. There's a lot of information in this thing. And so we've got 8 different chapters, and within those chapters, we've kind of broken up exactly where you need to start and all the information that you need. But I'm going to kind of give you an overview here and then dive into a few of the different chapters with more details in this presentation. So the first thing we start with is the link between new construction real estate investors. And most of the time people feel like they're almost two different worlds, right? You've got your builders and you've got your real estate investors, and they just feel like there's not much of a link there. There's not much of a crossover. And so honestly, when we first got into building houses, it felt like we were kind of on an island all by ourselves, because you have all these builders that build, but we're a real estate investor that's kind of getting into the building world, and it's like we're running in these parallel universes, but there's no bridge to connect them. And so finally, when we did Street of Dreams and some other things, we got to know some builders and started to figure out what their business models look like and really where their deficiencies are within their businesses. And so that was really, really powerful to figure out, okay, how can we work together to make a lot more money? And it was really a powerful thing, and the light bulb went on. But the bottom line is that most builders, they source their inventory in very, very simple ways. Usually RMLS, pocket listings, networking with realtors. It's really that limited. They don't have marketing machines. They don't have any sort of sophisticated acquisition funnel. They really don't. Maybe they're looking on Craigslist or things like that. I mean, my wife used to work for a big builder, and their land acquisitions guy literally looked on Craigslist to try and find properties for them to contact the owner and buy. So they really don't have these built out marketing machines for the most part that are bringing them deals. They're very much reliant on other people to provide them inventory to build. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, contrasting that with how do great real estate investors find deals, right? Well, there's a number of ways, but generally if they're marketing for deals, there's online marketing, there's direct mail marketing, there's bandit signs in some markets. For this particular training, we're going to focus on the niche of direct mail, because I think that that's the most applicable to being very targeted and going after the right types of properties. So keep that in mind for this training. You can do the other things, but if you're going to utilize this niche, I would strongly suggest that you utilize direct mail when we talk about actually marketing to the types of properties that you're going to target. Now, great real estate investors, they build that marketing machine, right? They generate leads, and they either wholesale the leads, they rehab them, they keep them and rent them, or some type of a combo. But they're constantly generating leads. And so, builders build homes, investors find deals. So it leads you to think, well, why shouldn't investors find deals for builders, right? Especially if builders, they don't have 99 out of 100 times don't have any sort of a robust marketing machine of their own in order to find deals. Or if they do have a marketing machine, it's usually pretty horrible. I mean, I've seen some of the builders and some of the direct mail that they have kind of dipped their toe in the water and tried to do here in my market, and it's god awful, to be honest with you. They really have no idea what they're doing. They don't, the person that's handling the phone is probably, a marginally decent realtor at best. So they don't have these fine-tuned marketing machines that a lot of us have. So something to keep in mind there. Now, if you have this machine, it just makes sense to start marketing to the right types of properties to find them, get them under contract, and flip them to builders. Or if some of you guys that are listening are builders yourself or have started building homes, there's no reason why you can't use this information to just find those properties for yourself and then make those ginormous paydays, because you're going to be able to create a margin that's 15-20% larger than what the average builder is getting on any type of a like product that they're building, because you're getting their direct to seller, you're getting the discount on top of it. Now, hopefully you guys see the connection here between the two worlds. Investors are great at finding deals, builders are great at building houses. So why not find tear down deals for builders so that they can make money and you can make money. So let's talk about my company, TTM Development Company. We obviously have, you see the office behind me, we have our marketing machine that runs out of this office here. And to be honest, at this point, just about every builder in town that knows our business is incredibly envious of the projects that we have. And this is just from the builder perspective. They don't know exactly how we're doing it, but we have tons, and not tons, we don't do high volume, but we do a good amount of volume, but they're all A-plus properties in A-plus areas with ginormous spreads for the houses that we keep and build. And so they're very envious of this type of business. And so they don't quite know how we do it, but the reality is that we've just taken our skills as a real estate investor, and you guys will understand this because you guys are real estate investors. Most builders just have a hard time comprehending this, but we've taken our as a real estate investor, finding the deals, and we've blended those skills with our ability to construct and build homes, and with that we have kind of a hybrid business that has just become insanely profitable. But dialing it back, you don't have to have the hybrid business. If you have the marketing machine on the front end and you're able to go after the right types of properties, you can always find a builder like myself that maybe doesn't have that marketing machine, and you can flip them those deals and you can sell those deals to them, and they'll be happy, very happy to buy them from you, especially because they need inventory. That's what they do, is build. If you can find them those deals, trust me, they will pay you a pretty penny for them. So now let's talk about what's the value of using this strategy. Now that you understand, the connection between builders and investors. Now, it's really just another strategy to add to your real estate investing toolbox. This doesn't mean you don't have to go after normal rehabs, normal wholesales, turnkey stuff, depending on your markets. It doesn't mean you don't have to go after that stuff as well, but it gives you another tool to be able to utilize if you get a lead in that, let's say, before you even thought about this niche, if you got a lead in that's a 650 square foot, one-bedroom house that came in from your marketing funnel, right? Most real estate investors, rehabbers, will get that lead in and be like, it's a one-bedroom house or a two-bedroom house. They don't like those, right? One or two-bedroom house most of the time. If it's obscure for the neighborhood, if there's not a lot of two-bedroom homes or one-bedroom homes, which there's rarely ever a lot of one-bedroom homes, but some neighborhoods have more two-bedroom homes. But point is that you get that smaller, kind of obscure product in your marketing funnel. As an investor, you go, yeah, I don't know. That lead kind of sucks. What can we do with it? It's only worth so much. Well, on the flip side, if that lead comes in a builder's marketing funnel or lands on their desk somehow, that lead's gold to them because they're not looking at the house. They're looking at the land, right? The house is really irrelevant. It's more a matter of what is the neighborhood like? What's the ceiling for the neighborhood as far as value goes? And from there, try and figure out how cheaply they can purchase the lot, which has the house on it, but the house will eventually be knocked down. So you can see, if you look at that type of lead from purely a real estate investor rehabber perspective versus a builder perspective, and now you blend the two, and when you're an inventory provider for a builder, now you get a lead like that in your marketing funnel that comes in. Now all of a sudden you know what you can do with it. It's not one of those type. It's one of those leads that's like, what, we might have some gold here that we can make a lot of money with. Now, the other reason why what the value is of using this strategy is, bottom line, hands down, it is the absolute best strategy to make the biggest amount of money wholesaling properties. And so, the reality is that you don't have to wholesale a very high purchase price. So like I talked about earlier, you can buy for $250 and sell for $350. I've heard people do that time and time and time again. We've done it time and time again. And so you don't have to be buying $1 million home and sell it for 1.2 or 1.1 to get those six-figure margins. You can do it with a much lower price, and that's virtually unheard of. It's really difficult. Now, I have seen it happen with some of the bigger rehab stuff, but it's rare. And so I want to kind of compare and contrast the difference between trying to wholesale those bigger rehabs versus wholesaling just a teardown. And not only in terms of what you can make on each, but the difficulty factor, right? If you get these properties that come in that may be best suited for teardown, if you're not thinking about it that way, you might be thinking, well, this is going to need to be added on to a second story, is going to need to be put on it. I'm going to need to wholesale it as a big rehab like that. And so when you do that, there's a lot of issues that come up. It's a lot more challenges. You can't just, go through your buyers list of however many you have and just send it out to everybody and expect a bidding war. There's problems that happen when you're trying to flip properties like that. Number one is everybody seems to have a different number for the rehab cost. They don't know exactly what it's going to cost most of the time, and so they usually try and put some sort of a safety cushion in there, or they're trying to, knock you down on your price and make you think that it's going to cost more than it is to rehab. Number two is, you may get some gripes about your assignment fee. A lot of rehabbers, it depends on the market, but some rehabbers don't like to see you making a ton of money on them. And the reason being is because we're fishing in the same pond, right? A lot of times rehabbers feel like somehow you as a wholesaler beat them to the property, and deep down they just don't like that. They'll pay you, but they just don't like it. Some don't care, but some do, and so that might be a problem. When you're wholesaling these big rehabs, you also have to think about who is actually capable of doing this type of project, right? You get a lot of people that are tire kickers. You get a lot of people that say, yeah, I'll do that project. But at the end of the day, there's a very thin margin of investors that are actually capable, have the skill sets, have the comfort level with construction to be able to take on a bigger project like that, on top of the fact of getting financing for it, right? If they buy the property from you for $250,000 and they have to put $130 into rehab, now all of a sudden, they have to have a pretty strong lending relationship in place, whether that be with a hard money lender or a private money lender, or they need to have a pretty strong capital base themselves in order to take on projects like that. You can't just go sell that to a beginning investor, and I think that's one thing that a lot of gurus really don't talk about, and especially when it comes to cash buyers, when they talk about cash buyers being a dime a dozen. When you're going into this niche of selling bigger rehabs, there is no dime a dozen. It's maybe 1 in 10 can actually even do that type of project. So you start to get the idea of how difficult it can be. And then on top of that, getting a super low price out of the seller, right? If the seller is giving the structure value, then it becomes more difficult to get that big discount from them, on top of all the other challenges that I talked about. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be done, because we've done it, but I just want to address these challenges that if any of you guys have done this, you've probably felt these challenges, and it's important to talk about that. So let's compare and contrast. How is flipping teardowns different, right? So if you get that same house in that maybe needs a second story, it needs to be added on to, it needs to be gutted down to the studs, rebuilt for the most part. Maybe you need to raise up the ceiling height in the basement, and then you need to add a second story to it. You need to do all these things, right? Well, instead, if you looked at that property as just a teardown, number one is it's easy to determine what a builder will pay for it, right? That is something that we show you in this training, exactly how to use some online resources to figure out within a pretty solid ballpark what any builder would pay for this as a lot. When you're trying to sell that as a rehab, it becomes more difficult, right? It's a moving target, especially if people say, well, it's going to cost me $120 to rehab it, and somebody else is going to say it's going to cost me $180 to rehab it. That can change what you can sell it for pretty dramatically, and then obviously that factors into how cheaply you try and get it under contract and what your spread is, and so you never really know what you're going to make until it's done. With flipping teardowns, you can know ahead of time what builders are paying for lots in an area. So when you get a lead that comes in, if somebody says that they want $2 for property, and you know that builders are paying $250 to $270, it's no-brainer, right? Bam, you can lock it up right away, or get out there and build some rapport, and however your style is, but you get your hook set, you get that locked in. It's not like a big rehab where you're just not sure until you get somebody that says that they might want it, and they walk through and they check it out and they meet with their contractors and they go through all that song and dance, and then finally they say yes to whatever price. With flipping teardowns, it's easy to determine what a builder will pay. Really, really easy. We use a resource called Redfin, and we show you exactly how we do that in the training, and it really takes a lot of the mystery out of determining what a deal is and what a deal isn't in any given neighborhood or area of your market. On top of that, the cost to build a new home doesn't vary nearly as much as it does with rehabbers that you're trying to sell those big rehab projects to. It's usually somewhere between $100 and $120 a square foot. That's what builders are most of the time building for. I've heard some gurus that say that they build houses for $50 to $60 a square foot, maybe in Podunk, Wisconsin somewhere, but not in any major metropolitan area anywhere in the country. It's just not going to happen. So, generally speaking, you're going to see about $100 to $120 a square foot for a normal flat lot in an infill neighborhood. Now, of course, there's variables that may factor in some markets than others. San Francisco is going to be more expensive than that, but I would say on the average of the major metros, you're looking between 100 and 120 square foot, and we have people in our Deal Finders Academy from pretty much all over the country, and so I can say that fairly confidently. That's about the ballpark that you're going to see. And again, comparing and contrasting that with rehabs, you don't know. And most of the time it's because the people you're selling to really don't know, and it's hard for them to know. I mean, I've done the big budgets on those big rehabs and those add-on projects, and there's always a variance compared to what you budget versus what it ends up. And it always ends up more. It just does. And so, that can really factor in and just make it more difficult to not only sell those types of projects, but sell them with a big margin attached to them. So the other thing that is worth mentioning is that builders could absolutely care less about how much money you make. Whereas if you're selling to rehabbers, like we talked about, sometimes they feel like you beat them to the property, and for whatever reason, they'll pay you, but if they know that you're making 60, 70 grand on them, some guys get pissed about that, and you're going to have to do a double closing, and then you have all those things to deal with, whether you need transactional funding or you need to line up private money or hard money or whatever it is, if you don't have your own capital. Those things are in play. They're things that you have to think about. Builders could care less because the reality is that they're not real estate investors. They just need inventory to build. They build houses. And if you can give them a lot in a great area of your market that they can build and they can create their margin by going vertical and building that house, that's all they care about. They don't care about how much money you make. It's just not how they're wired. And so that's a really important thing to keep in mind because it makes this process so simple compared to, flipping to rehabbers some of the time. Next up is negotiating, right? So negotiating when you're selling a big rehab, again, you have not only selling it to your rehab buyer, but you have to negotiate down that price to 50, 60 cents on the dollar or less from the actual seller. And if the seller is giving any credit to the structure, getting them to take that abbreviated price, it's some work. I mean, it happens. It does. We've done it. I'm sure a lot of you guys on the call have done it. But your success rate of getting that steep of a discount is going to be very low. It's just the reality of the real estate business, and especially right now with as hot as the market is. When the market cools a little bit, it becomes easier. But if you're going direct to seller and you're trying to flip these big rehab projects and make big spreads as a wholesaler, it's tough because you've got to get them to take a really low number based on what the property could be worth, after all that work's been done. And it's an uphill battle. It's a challenge. Now, with buying teardowns, it's much easier to negotiate that lower price. There's some things that you can do and some tactics that we teach you guys in the training to really easily get the seller to reduce their price down to less than what the lot's worth in order to really get your margin as wide as possible. And once the seller understands that it's just lot value, that gives you a tremendous amount of power in your negotiating too, because you can frame the value with different types of comps. You've got real estate commissions you can back out. You have all these things. You have all these strategies, and we go through them one by one in the training. But you have all these strategies that make your close rate or your success rate with these types of deals so much higher than trying to negotiate down the price on a big rehab project because you're already starting at lot price. You're already starting there. And right now, builders will pay 100 cents on the dollar for whatever a lot is worth, sometimes even a little more, whereas rehabbers always want to get the best deal that they possibly can. So if you can understand that concept, it's very, very important, and you can start to see why there's so much opportunity in this niche. Now, sometimes maybe you only make 20 grand, 30 grand on a lot flip, but there's the potential a lot more of the time to make 70, 80, 100 plus on one deal than there is in any other niche. That potential is there so much more than any other niche. Now, the other thing, and this is kind of a secret tip and something we go into in great detail in the training, and I want to make sure I share it here on the webinar with you guys, is that when you're going after teardown deals, sometimes the best deals aren't always obvious to the average real estate investor. And so what do I mean by that? Well, most real estate investors, and especially ones that are newer, that are out there marketing, trying to find deals, because usually people start in the wholesale arena and the direct-to-seller stuff these days, most of those real estate investors don't ever look or pay much attention to the total square footage of the lot, and they rarely ever look up the zoning. And those two factors alone can make you a fortune if you are flipping teardowns. And so that's something we go into in great detail in the training, really get you trained up on zoning, really get you trained up on lot size, and really get you trained up on how to determine what the standard lot size is in your area and being able to compare and contrast that with the zoning to be able to create a value for the dirt. And sometimes sellers don't even know. A lot of times sellers, they don't know what the zoning is on their property. And so just for an example, and this kind of goes to further, well, I got a couple examples here, but this is going to really show why your profit margin as a wholesaler can be bigger in this niche than any other niche out there. It just hands down, there's no argument. I saw a post on Facebook the other day, and this was an individual that had a great success. I think they made about 200 grand on a flip. And I thought, I got to read about this. It sounds like a great profit margin. Well, as it turns out, it was, it was a wholesale, but they had to close on it and they had to resell it, and it was $1 million home in the Phoenix area, I think, which is great. Congratulations to them. But they had to do that with $1 million home. They had to go find funding to go close on almost $1 million and then sell it for around 1.2, which was still a wholesale price, I guess. But they had a lot of risk. They had a big price, that they had to come up with money for to close. So, I hope they made that much money if they're putting out that much capital, even if it's a wholesale. It's just, that's the way those finished product or existing structure flips work. You got to go up in price point if you want to expect to make that kind of money. With flipping teardowns, you don't, as I've said over and over here. And so I want to give you an example. And this was an example of a house that we bought about a year ago now. We've been working on it for a while, and I'll tell you why. But we bought this house. It was in a neighborhood of Lake Oswego. It's a very desirable neighborhood, Lake Oswego. And it was a 5,000 square foot lot, but it was zoned R2. And so basically what that means is that you could either build a triplex on the property based on the zoning laws here, or you could build 2 units, 2 townhome units. And so what we elected to do was to split the property, and we're going to build 2 townhome units. Well, we bought the property for $350,000 because we bought it as a tear-down single-family price. So single-family residences in the neighborhood on 5,000 square foot lots were being sold for anywhere between $325 and $360 about. We got this under contract and bought it for $350. The sellers thought they got a pretty good deal, which they did at the time. We thought we got a great deal. Even if we were going to build one house, we could just build one house there. But the zoning allowed to split the lot. So what we decided to do was go through the partition process, utilize the zoning of R2, and we've now split the lot into 2. Well, along the way, we've gotten multiple offers for $550,000 for the lot that we paid $350 for, because now it's 2 lots. That somebody could have bought it from us, created 2 lots. Well, now that we have created 2 lots out of it, and we're building 2 townhomes on the lots, and each townhome is going to sell for around $800,000 a pop. So you can see why we decided to keep it. But even if we weren't a builder, and we bought this for $350,000, we bought it at a teardown price for a single-family 1 house, 1 lot, because the zoning allowed for it to be split, and you could build a little higher density housing here, and it was a nicer, more desirable neighborhood. Obviously, you have to factor in all these things, but because the zoning allowed for it and the lot was big enough, we were offered prices based on it being 2 lots, which is why we could have made 200 grand just flipping this thing, wholesaling it to somebody else to let them split it. So they would have paid $550 for the whole thing, and then they would have built 2 townhomes where they basically paid $275 a lot, and then they built townhomes that ended up selling for around $800 a piece. So you can see how they would make money as well, and so it would be a win-win-win. Instead, we're just keeping it, and we're going to keep the entire margin because we can make an absolute killing just selling these 2 townhomes, and they should sell lickety-split when we're done with them. But if we weren't a builder, we could have still made 200 grand. So compare and contrast that with the example I told you about those guys in Phoenix that had to buy $1 million home to create a $200,000 spread. We paid $350,000 for a teardown, and we could create that same $200,000 spread. So you got to work smarter in this business, not harder, and that's a lot of what we go into in this training is thinking about how to be smarter, how to work smarter, how to do, the hamster doesn't need to run so fast on the wheel upstairs, right? It can chill out and run a little slower as long as it's just being smarter about it. And so that's, when I hear people say, oh, I'm going to do 100 deals this year, 200 deals this year, I think to myself, geez, do you want to give yourself a heart attack? I mean, either that or they're just not working that smart, because you don't have to do that many deals and you can still make an absolute killing. You just have to understand and be more clear about what type of inventory you're going after, what type of niches you're utilizing to make money in this business. And so hopefully you guys are starting to get the idea of how much money can be made utilizing this niche and really, starting to understand zoning, lot size, neighborhoods, values, and really learn where your builders want to build within your market. So I think I drove that point home. Now let's get into one of the next chapters that we have in the training is where to start, right? And we've got at the end of the training we have basically an A to Z, where to start, do this, do this, do this, just to kind of create a little more clarity on how to do it. But there's really 2 ways to start. One is you can find the right properties. 2 is you can find the right builders. You can do it whatever way makes you the most comfortable, but at the end of the day, starting is the most important thing. Personally, I would probably do it simultaneously, but you can always get to know your neighborhoods, your areas, and start scoping properties before you talk to a builder. Talking to the builder basically allows you to confirm what areas they want to be in, and then from there you can absolutely confirm the farm areas that you want to target and market to, and pluck properties out of. But it also allows you to get to know the builders, find out what they'll pay in each area, right? You can do your back research and really know before you talk to them by utilizing the things that we tell you in this training. But, getting to know these builders is very important as well. Find out, what their bandwidth is, how many projects can they take on, how are they funding, what do they want to, what areas do they want more than others, and just establishing a friendship with them, getting to know them. Of all the case studies that I was showing the handout, all these guys are buddies with the builders that they sell to now. And the builders love them because they're making a ton of money flipping to these builders, but these builders are getting great lots in fantastic areas, and they're providing them inventory on a silver platter. So they're happy to pay them a ton of money to provide them these deals on a silver platter. So either way, you can start with finding the properties, you can start with finding the builders. I would say that you can definitely start just kind of researching your areas and getting to know your areas and values, and using some of the online resources like Redfin to really start to understand which areas have new construction going on, what builders are paying for them, how active new construction is in any of those given areas before you meet with the builder. But at the same time, you can reach out to a builder. So we go through in detail to kind of tell you how to find these builders, and also how to, find the right properties and things like that. So bottom line is you can determine, or you can, decide to start with the builders, you can decide to start with the properties. It's really whatever makes you most comfortable, but at some point you're going to have to be doing both at the same time. Now, we also go through, on the property side, we go through in detail how to find the best areas in your market for infill new construction. Now, I say infill new construction because that's what this is. It's infill. We're not talking about on the outskirts of any metro area as it's continuing to grow out and out and out. We're talking about infill new construction, teardowns in areas that are already established. They're mature neighborhoods, and you've got older housing stock that is either dilapidated or it's just not the highest and best use for the lots now. So we're talking about infill new construction, and so we go through exactly how to identify the areas or the neighborhoods within your market that are best for infill new construction and offer the most opportunity to you and the builder. We also go through what areas to absolutely stay out of, and this is almost as important as the areas to go into, because you don't want to waste your time going into areas that you should absolutely stay out of, and there are some of them, there really are. Now, generally speaking, infill new construction is happening in the more desirable parts of your market. Why is that? It's because there's higher price points, and if there's higher price points, it means there's more profit. And in every market, there's probably that value line where new construction starts and stops. And so, you really need to determine what that value line is in your market before you can start to figure out which area or areas would be good for it. So it's kind of all part of the research, and we go through exactly how to figure all that stuff out. Now, as you get in the more expensive of areas and the nicer areas, it really just means more profit and more money can be made. And so you really shouldn't be deterred from being in those nicer areas. I know as investors, we're always trained that we need to be cheap, cheap, cheap in the cheaper areas, in the hood areas, whatever. With this niche, throw that in the garbage. Don't pay attention to it at all. Don't be, intimidated by higher price points in nicer areas, because that's where this niche thrives. That's where you can make the most money. So bottom line is get to know your markets, get to know your neighborhoods, get to know values. I strongly encourage you to drive your areas as well after you research using the online tools, because it's one of those niches where you really need to get to know each area very, very well, because when those leads come in, one street can be, a difference in value can be $100,000 from one street to another when you're getting into these nicer price points. So you really need to know your areas inside out and backwards. That way, if you're going to put in the time, put in the effort to do the marketing, and you get a deal that comes in, you can recognize it like that, and that's the importance of it. It really is. Now, we also go into really extensive detail on how to find the right builders to provide deals to, because this is super important, and most people have no idea the different types of builders and who they should talk to and who they shouldn't talk to. But for example, one of the biggest things that you need to know the difference of is a spec builder versus a custom builder. You need to know that you're absolutely going after spec builders, and really most of the time custom builders are a waste of your time, and they're not people that you want to talk to. So we go into detail on exactly why that is. And then, there's also production builders. Some production builders could be a good fit for you, some not. But we talk about that in extreme detail so that you are fully familiar with, what's a production builder, what's a spec builder, what's a custom builder, what are the advantages, disadvantages to trying to sell to each one, and really what the ultimate best builder for you to do business with is, what they look like, not physically, but what their business looks like. So. And then we give you kind of a roadmap on how to talk to them, what to ask them, things to find out, all these things that you may not know, you may not be comfortable with. And so it's important to have that confidence, have that comfort level, and really, just feel like you know what you're talking about, because that's really, I think, what impedes a lot of people and prevents them from getting into this niche and having conversations with builders and tracking them down and talking to them. Because if you feel like you don't know what you're talking about, it's just one of those things that kind of holds people back. So we're trying to remove that barrier of entry. We're trying to give you everything that I have in my head here, give it to you, and that way when you have these conversations with people, you're as comfortable as I am when I talk to any other builder about projects that we might have to flip them or whatever. And that kind of segues into, we have a chapter that's dedicated all about the details. And so it's basically A to Z, everything a builder will need to know before buying a teardown lot, or everything that they will find out along the way. If you can find those things out ahead of time, number one, you're going to sound super intelligent. It's going to really help you sell the property. But number two is, it'll allow you to get the highest possible price for something, because they won't be able to pull the wool over your eyes or BS you or anything like that. You'll know all these things ahead of time, and you'll be trained up on them. And so that's super important, because again, when it's like when you get trying to sell a big project to a rehabber, right, an add-on rehab, and they tell you, oh, it's going to be $180,000 to rehab this house, and if you don't know anything about construction, maybe it only costs $100,000, and they pull that $80,000 over your eyes. That's what we're trying to prevent with this as well, is if you know your shit, basically, nobody's going to pull one over on you, and you'll also be able to identify deals on your end with much more clarity. You'll know if there's any issues there ahead of time that you can, either use that information to, have a conversation with the seller and get the price down. It's good all around to know these things. And so, we've taken everything that I've ever had to deal with in our due diligence and looking at lots, and the public infrastructure and systems and utilities and all those things, trees, slopes, busy roads, non-busy roads, all these things that are super important to factoring into the ultimate value of the teardown. We have that down on paper to train you guys so that you can take that into account when you're out dealing with trying to put these deals under contract and flip them. Next, we have a chapter that's dedicated to targeting all of the right properties, right? So once you figure out which areas are good, now you need to go target the right properties within those areas. And it's amazing how much clarity this can give you, not only with this niche, but in this business, to know exactly which type of property or properties you will be going after and marketing to. It just makes this business so much easier when you have an exact recipe for the type of property that you're going to market to, as opposed to, well, is it a absentee owner? I guess we'll market to it, right? Just because they're an absentee owner doesn't mean that it's a good fit for you as a real estate investor. But I can tell you that if you create a list based on all the criteria that we give you in here, that is a great lead for you to buy as a teardown. The only caveat there is that you have to buy it at at lot value or less, but most of the time, sellers with these types of properties are realistic about what the property is worth, and they'll concede very quickly to the fact that it's probably lot value. And so from there, it's just a matter of framing that price and using some of the strategies that we teach you to get that price down just a little bit more, so that then you can sell it to a builder at 100 cents on the dollar. So basically, we go through not only which properties you should be targeting, but then how to build this custom list, because this custom list is the list you're going to then use to direct mail market to, or market to however you feel fit. I personally think that direct mail is the absolute best way to contact these people, but if you're a cold caller, if you're a door knocker or whatever, so be it. But we have some great direct mail strategies that we use to contact these people, and it works really, really well for us. Now, in addition to showing you how to target these specific properties, we really go into detail about the power of having the super targeted list versus a more generic absentee list. And so it's really important to understand that concept, understand how that plays into your ability to pay for marketing to these leads, because every lead is so quality that you really have no wasted marketing funds. Whereas if you buy an absentee list and you mail to everybody, you probably have 40 to 50% of that list you have no business mailing, just based on the quality of the the property itself. It's never going to sell for a wholesale price or close to it. So really, you're wasting a ton of money to mailing probably half that list. Whereas with these, all great leads. So if you think about it that way, you can afford to put a little bit more money into your marketing pieces to help ensure you get a little better response rate and ultimately a little better deal flow. So there's a concept there that we go through in detail, and hopefully that'll sink in with you guys that are utilizing the product. We then go into some specific tips for generating the best response possible with direct mail, some tips on the actual direct mail pieces that I would suggest that you guys use for this strategy, and that plays into the concept that I just talked about before this, but we really give you some actionable direct mail secrets that we use and everybody in our Deal Finders Academy use. And then we even go into what type of campaign to send, how many in the sequence, how we do it all. And so basically we tell you exactly how it is that we generate an ongoing pipeline of these teardown leads, which has made us a ton of money. And so you can just kind of rinse and repeat, take it, put it to work in your business, whether you're going to keep them and build them yourself or whether you're just trying to find them and flip them to other builders. So it really doesn't matter where your business is. You can take that direct mail information and put it to work. And then, of course, at the end, we have the specific action plan to implement all of the training that we talk about within the Flipping Teardown. So that's kind of a rundown of hopefully you guys got some good information out of that little presentation there. Now, onto the handout that you guys can access. I won't spend a ton of time on this, but I want to just talk about a few examples, and I'll talk about mine more than the other guys, but you can read about them. So one of the individuals in the handout, Justin Silverio, the Boston investor, I'm sure many of you guys have heard of him. He's a good friend, he's a great guy, and he's had a ton of success utilizing this niche in the Boston market or the Boston area, which is a highly competitive area, but he has a deal that he did, one deal. He made 70 grand flipping this teardown, and the guy that he sold it to was just happy as a clam to buy it from him, and of course Justin was happy as a clam to make 70 grand. That's one deal. One deal. You don't have to do 10, 15 deals a month to make that kind of money. You only need to do one. Now you can do a lot more of these deals if you want to, but you got to work smarter, not harder. So Justin Silverio made 70 G's on one deal. Another individual in our Deal Finders Academy, Nathan Poteet, he's in one of the Texas markets. He made $55,000 on one deal that he talks about here, and again, the builder that he sold it to was ecstatic. That same month, he actually sold another couple deals, and he made over $100,000. I think he made like $120,000 or $130,000 with 2 or 3 deals that month, flipping teardowns. 2 or 3 deals, well into the 6 figures. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And then another individual, Michael Loheen, who is also in the Boston area, not in the same area as our Boston investor, but we don't overlap people in the Deal Finders Academy. But he did a flip here, and he made I don't know, a ton of money, $50K. Yeah, he made $50,000 flipping this deal. And so he talks about how he listened to what I had to say, basically what I presented to you guys here today, what's included in this training, and he put this to work, and he's been doing this over and over and over again, by the way. This is just one of his many deals that he's done, but you can see the reoccurring theme here where people are making an absolute killing, with this niche, and so it's really a no-brainer. I mean, the type of money that you can make with it is just crazy. Now we have a couple deals here of my own. I'll just go through one of them here because we've been going pretty long and I want to make sure that we get this wrapped up pretty quick. But one of the deals that we bought was in this neighborhood called Alameda Ridge in northeast Portland, and it was a deal that we got from marketing one of our direct mail lists, and it was an out-of-town owner, but some of the family lived here in town, and it was a smaller house. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, kind of a funky basement, but it was in an area that had $1 million homes, and so we were talking to this individual, and we were able to comp the property based on other 2-bedroom homes in the area, not on the exact street, but we were able to frame the price with other 2-bedroom homes in the area. We managed to get the property under contract and purchased it for $315,000. We flipped it very shortly thereafter, we actually closed on it because we just, we wanted to maximize our money, and we didn't quite know if we were going to build it ourselves or flip it out. But we closed on it, and we got an offer immediately from another builder for $430,000. $430,000. We made $115,000 doing absolutely nothing for a house that we bought for $315,000. So again, think about those margins. Think about the amount of money that we made on those types of price points. Now the builder went on to knock that house down. They built a house there. They sold it for $1.1 million, and they made plenty of money as well. But I mean, we've done this type of thing over and over and over again. There's another one in here that we talk about that was a short sale deal, so you can read that case study and utilize that strategy that we use for short sales as well to really comp down the value of a home and then be able to take it as a tear down and flip that out as well. So there's a ton of opportunity in this niche, folks. I mean, there's so much money to be made. For us personally, we generate a lot of this type of inventory and we just keep it now. So we have enough inventory that we're holding right now for the next 12 to 18 months to build out. But we could flip all that inventory out tomorrow if I wanted to, and we could make well over $1 million just flipping that, doing absolutely nothing. But we have a construction business. I have jobs and people that we have to keep working and support, and we've got the infrastructure here, so why not build it out and make, I don't know how much money we have on the table, but let's say probably somewhere around $5 million in profit with the inventory that we're holding right now that we can build out. So you can see whether you're just simply wholesaling or whether you have the means to eventually segue into building for yourself. It starts with finding the inventory, and you can make a ton of money whether you're just an inventory provider to builders or whether you're an inventory provider to your own business and builders. You can do a combination of the two things, but this is the smartest and best way to work as a real estate investor in 2016. There is no other niche that's going to make you the amount of money for the amount of effort, and quite honestly, for those of you guys that are running your marketing machines right now, you don't have to do any more work to generate these types of leads and these types of profits. All you need to do is just tweak where you're marketing and who you're selling to. That's it. And so really think about that. Think about working smarter, not harder. That's the whole idea behind this niche, and it truly is the biggest. It has the most opportunity of any niche for real estate investors in 2016, both financially and everything, because if you win financially, it trickles down to a lot of other aspects of your life as well. So I'm going to go back to screen share here. We've kind of got through the presentation, and we kind of get to the end here. So here's where we're at. How can you access the Flipping Teardowns training course? While you guys have been listening to this, Dan sent you all an email, and in that email is a link to purchase the training. So you can go to that link. Now, originally we were going to charge between $600 and $800 for this training. We have another training out that we charge $1,000 for. I was going to charge $600 to $800 for this, but instead, I wanted to be able to make it available to more people, and so we're only charging $299 for this, which is a friggin' steal. But there's a caveat, there's a catch, and that catch is, to be fair to our Deal Finder Academy members who are all over the country, and I don't want to oversaturate any one given area, it's only available for 2 weeks, and that's it. So I strongly encourage you guys to take advantage of this. It's a screaming deal at $299 for the amount of money that you can generate from utilizing the information in that training and that niche and just putting this all to work in your business. I mean, you can change your life. So for $299, it's really a no-brainer. I would strongly suggest go to your email, click on the link, and go purchase the training. I can guarantee you will be very, very happy that you did. We really tried to pack this thing full of a ton of great actionable information that basically takes you from A to Z, soup to nuts, how to utilize this niche and how to start making tons of money doing it. So check your email and go to that link, and hopefully you guys decide to invest in the training for yourself. Now, for those of you guys that have been on the webinar, I appreciate your time. I know it's the week, and so for that I have a special thank you type bonus for you, and so here's what it is. We have our Negotiating with Sellers online training, and this is our robust $1,000 product that we sell every day, and it's an online, basically like a membership site online. You log in, and we have hours and hours and hours of training on exactly how we negotiate with sellers. I'm talking call after call after call that's been broken up into different categories of how we get prices out of people, how we frame values, how we do everything that allows us to buy properties for super, super cheap. And this is all very applicable to negotiating with sellers for teardown properties as well. For those of you guys that have joined us today, I want to thank you guys for that. And so in the email that Dan sent you, there's a coupon code along with the link. If you want to invest in our negotiating with sellers product, it's only going to be $199, 80% off our normal price, which is crazy. We've never offered it for that low ever, and we won't again. So this price is good for 24 hours. That's it. So I strongly encourage you guys to also invest in this if you want any sort of help with your negotiating. And I can tell you, for $200, I mean, it'll absolutely save you at least 20 times that on your next negotiation. I can tell you that. So it's also a no-brainer. So either way, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this webinar. I really hope it opened your eyes to what is, I think, the most amazing niche in this business for residential real estate investors. There's nothing that has the amount of opportunity that this does. It can be absolutely life-changing for you. It can allow you to quit your job. It can allow you to now finally hire people to grow your business because you feel like you've got the confidence to create the profits to do that, to have a family, to do all kinds of things. It all starts with just working smarter and not harder, and this niche is the place to do it. So again, thanks guys for joining me here on this webinar. Check your email inbox. Dan sent you guys an email. It has a link to the product here. I'll scroll up again. And you can go to the Flipping Teardowns page and invest in the product. I know you guys will not be disappointed, that's for sure. So thanks again, guys, and I'm going to wrap it up.